We welcome the Debris. Good to see you all. Welcome.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning, Miss Lundy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good to hear from you. And we have Miss Evelyn. Is it Miss Evelyn? That's on this? Okay, well, let's begin. Let me, I'm going to turn some time over to Rodney to maybe do introductions here while I just check to make sure we're not catching any last minute folks that want to join us. And so Rodney, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, again, welcome. Glad to see everyone. I'm going to take just a moment to introduce the.
Good morning.
Good morning. Take just a moment to introduce the people who were on the call with us. Of course, I'm Rodney Brown. I'm president of the association, a member of the board of directors. You all know Dave, who's also a member of the board of directors. We also have with us Kathy Jameson, who is one of the property managers here at Plantation Resort. Randy Woolman, who takes minutes and handles all of the paperwork of our association. We appreciate her. Josh Benson is our accountant, and he's be making presentations to us shortly about budgets and so forth. And Steve Davis, also one of our property managers, who seems to have stepped out of his office. Oh, I see his ear. There you are, Steve. Also one of our property managers here at the resort. So that's the staff that's here. We welcome the members, and we'll. I think Dave has an agenda set for us, and I'll turn it back to Dave.
Okay, thank you, Rodney. Appreciate that. Also wanted to make mention to Marsha Lundy, who's joined us as well. She's one of the HOA board members as well in Plantation Golf Villas 2. So let me share the screen here with you all. And hopefully you all see that. Everybody see the PowerPoint slides? Hopefully that's the case.
Yes.
You see that? Yeah. Good. Great. Yeah, hopefully my buttons are going to work. I'm on 3 different screens here, so please forgive me. Trying to keep tabs on making sure, just one last check to make sure no one's last minute registered. Okay, I think we're set. All right, well, welcome. We actually combined the Plantation Golf Villas 2 and Plantation Golf Villas 3 annual meetings this week, this year, just to help with efficiencies. And we're glad that you're here with us. Let me go to the next slide if I can get back to it here. See if I can. Let me see if how I can work that out. There we go. Okay, so the agenda, pretty much, if you've been in meetings in the past, pretty much the same agenda, only updated for, of course, the current year. We've already had the welcome and introductions. And of course, if anyone did not receive the proper notice of the meeting, please let us know. That went out. And of course, it's kind of obvious that you've received some notification or else you wouldn't be here joining us. But to be official, we have to ask that there is proper proof of notice of the meeting that went out. Once again, like I said, if anyone had any issues with receiving that notification for whatever reason, please let me know. We'll make sure we have your updated information. Normally it's the case where someone's moved or updated their email address and we don't have the most recent one that you're using. So, okay, also, if I could make a motion to not take the time to read the minutes of last annual meeting, I so move that we propose not to do that. Does anybody second that motion?
Second.
All in favor? Oh, thank you. All in favor. Well, I guess probably the best way to do this is there any opposed to us not reading the minutes All right, well, I'll take that as meaning that we're okay to skip that section, that step. So let's go right on to the property management report. And of course, we have a number of property managers on the call with us today, or on the Zoom meeting today, but I'll just go through these. Here are some of the major projects coming up that we'll be discussing, and briefly here, just listing that kind of impacts us all as a resort. So major projects: curb and guttering at the entrance, Double Eagle Drive. So at the entrance to the resort, on the indoor pool side of the road, there's not curb and gutter yet. And we'll be starting that here in November and working that all the way down to the four-way stop sign. The reason why I'm bringing it up here, because it's not directly impacting these associations, but it's going to be directly impacting everyone coming in and out of the resort. So we're asking for your patience while we complete that project. And once again, not only is it going to look much more pleasing with the curbing there, but also the drainage is much improved when we have major storm events. So that's why we've done that. Also in phase 2, in Plantation Golf Villas 2, we'll be continuing to do the curb and guttering. And the ultimate goal is to be able to curb and gutter all of the even side of Double Eagle Drive. I don't know if we're going to be able to make it here. Well, of course, by the end of the year, we're not going to be able to complete all of what's left to be done, but we will be here hopefully in 2022. We'll be able to complete all the curb and guttering along Double Eagle Drive that's left. So once we complete the curb and guttering, we'll come back and repave Double Eagle Drive, that portion of Double Eagle Drive. So we've been doing those in sections, and you may have noticed that we've paved to make sure the drainage flows properly to the drains that we put in place. And so far, so good in what we've done so far. So we're excited to be able to complete that project in its entirety. Once again, that's probably going to be 2022 before we're able to do that. Okay, so Wi-Fi network upgrade. We promised all of the owners at the resort better access or stronger signal strength. In fact, starting this next week, Spectrum will be coming in to install more of the APs into the condos. The APs, those are the little wireless antennas that kind of look like a smoke detector. There's going to be 150 more installed, and that may impact some of the condos of the owners we have here. Once again, that antenna not only is for your unit, but it may be for a neighboring unit as well. So we ask for your help and cooperation in allowing us to install those. We will actually, the goal is that once these are installed, we'll be reconfiguring a private owner network. I talked about this last board meeting, or excuse me, last annual meeting in detail, but where we are separating the network. So there's the private owner network, those residents, those of you who own here, away from the guests. So the resort guests, timeshare guests, any guests coming to the resort and checking in the front desk, they'll have their network, and then the private owner network will be separate. So you're not going to be sharing bandwidth. So for example, in July, when we're full up as a resort, your bandwidth shouldn't be degrading nearly to the extent as it was when we were all sharing the same network. And we'll have that in place by January. I'll be sure, my goal is by the time we have these minutes rolling out for the meetings, that I'll have the private owner network SSID, meaning the login and the password for us all. And we're still working through that process with Spectrum, but we should have that here shortly. And then also with the last installation of the APs, we did have some firewall breaches by the Spectrum contractors that were installing the APs. And of course, we're going back and repairing those and making sure that the firewalls are intact. So that's a big project. And it's been a big project, and it's lasted longer than we've expected. And in fact, I've also been speaking with Spectrum. There may be a third rollout of APs after this one. So we're continually to improve the system and make it a better system for everyone. Okay, Santee Cooper, moving utility lines. If you've been to the resort lately, you know that there's a lot of construction going on the old golf courses surrounding the resort. We'll be talking a little bit about that later on. But in part of that, the electrical lines and the cable and the Wi-Fi, the fiber lines are going to be moved closer to the buildings. along the odd side of Double Eagle Drive. So that's going to impact us all because, of course, in moving those lines, they're going to have to disrupt or interrupt those services for at least a few minutes while they switch over to the new lines that they're running. So electric may go out intermittently, cable and Wi-Fi may be going out intermittently, but hopefully that will be a very short-term thing, and then we'll be done. And that will interrupt electric throughout the resort, cable throughout the resort, and so on. Okay, also security camera upgrade, November. Oh, and that Santee Cooper moving the utility lines should be happening here in the next couple of weeks, they're telling us. So here in the month of October, by November, hopefully all that will be done, and there shouldn't be any more interruptions with that. Security camera upgrade, that's coming in November as well. So once Santee Cooper is done trenching their lines, we'll have ComServe, our contractor for security cameras, coming in and trenching and eliminating a lot of the Wi-Fi antennas between cameras and going right to the fiber and using the fiber backbone that we've put in place. So we'll see a big improvement there. Okay, let me go on. Okay, fire damage. Hopefully, well, I think we sent out a letter to all the owners in May talking about the April fires that we had here on property, buildings 205, 215, and there was actually one in phase 2 as well. There were actually 3 fires, but the one fire was contained at the source. 2 of those fires started by the exhaust fan vents. You see the exhaust fan here and how dusty it is. I guess it gets so much dust collected in there and debris that it seizes the motor heats up and it ignites. That's how one of the fires started. The other fire started by faulty wiring, probably done by a prior homeowner who did the wiring him or herself instead of hiring a certified electrician. And that's how that other fire started. So let me just review quickly and show you the letter to the owners. I need to stop sharing the screen here to get to the letter. Get over here. Sorry for the delay. Got to get my mouse back. There we are. Okay, let me share the screen. This letter should look very familiar to you. It says, you know, it's entitled Important. Is everybody seeing that screen?
Yes.
Okay, 2 homeowners. We talked about firewall inspections. You know, I already mentioned that about some of the Wi-Fi wiring went through the firewall and it needed to be repaired, and we're doing that. The bathroom fans, or the exhaust fans, is what caused 2 of the 3 fires. And so we're asking the owners to take a serious look at all of their exhaust fans and making sure they're clean and make sure they're in good working order in order to prevent another fire from starting. Also including in that, with the exhaust fans that exhaust out to the outside, we need to make sure and take care of not only the exhaust fan, but we need to clean that line that goes to the outside as well, just like the dryer vent lines. So along the same lines, the dryer vents need to be cleaned out all the way to the outside. And of course, these are the owner's responsibilities. And so we've actually offered a couple of numbers here. I know there's DuraClean as well, which is another one that's on property a lot. If you need assistance of finding someone, a contractor to do that work for you, please let us know and we'll try to help you with that, because it's just crucial that we get those done. And that's maintained on a regular basis. Fire extinguishers, of course, all the ones that are in common areas, like in the foyers, we check monthly. But there's also extinguishers normally in the homes. Those in the condos, of course, the owners are responsible and to get those recharged and checked and make sure they're in working order. Pie Barker is the local company that does that, and there's the number to reach them to have your own fire extinguishers inspected and/or replaced inside your units. Smoke detectors. Not only do we need to, of course, check the smoke detectors and make sure that the batteries are up to date and they're working properly, but also we need to make sure that our smoke detectors are connected, meaning that if one one smoke detector, say in the living room goes off, that all of them in the condo will go off. And if you do not have interconnected smoke detectors, we strongly advise you to go out and purchase those. Now, there are actually ones that are wireless now, so you won't have to run cabling and do drywall work or run any of those lines that wirelessly connect. And those are the ones that we recommend highly that you go out and have if you do not have connected smoke detectors. Of course, for safety's sake, we would hate to have anyone be injured or even worse because of these items. Okay, attic space. I don't know if these HOAs really have any issues with this, but some of the owners, and in fact, in some places, owners prior to the new owners that have purchased condos. Let me give you a good example. Those studio apartments, the studio condos on the third floors, some of those studios don't have a bedroom. And so what an owner has done is gone in and created attic space and created a bedroom in an attic. Well, the problem with that is there's no egress there, meaning that if a fire starts in the living room, there's no way out. There's no windows. There's no way out for that owner to escape. And of course, that's against code. Plus, you know, the buildings weren't structured to have load-bearing, you know, support and joists and so on and so forth in the attic for living space. And so if there is living space there, the owners need to convert that back to attic space. That's against county code and the fire marshal and everything else. And we could all, you'd be jeopardizing yourself and those staying in your condo if that's the case where you have attic space converted to living space. Okay, also we sent out another letter about condo insurance. Let me stop sharing here and get to that letter that we sent out just to review. Let me pull it up here, letter to owners. Share that screen. Okay, you should see a letter dated May 17th. So there are two insurance policies. So Rodney, could you maybe briefly describe the two differences there?
Certainly. I'll just skip down to that second paragraph. The HOA master policy, the HOA has a policy that covers essentially the outside of the building, the roof, the walls, and so forth. And that is paid for by the HOA. And it's in your master deed, these are things called common elements, meaning things that benefit all owners, not just owners of a particular condominium. So that insurance is in effect, but we found that many owners don't have an individual condominium policy. The industry term for that is an HO6, like homeowner policy number 6. That policy covers the contents of the unit. Now, there is a little bit of a discrepancy, and I'll try to make this as simple as possible. Each owner owns everything inside the paint, is the way it's described. So technically, the homeowners, if something happened in your condo, the homeowners association owns the sheetrock, but doesn't own the paint, and you would be responsible for paint. The homeowners association owns the subfloor, but doesn't own the carpet or tile that you might have. Doesn't own the cabinets, doesn't own the fixtures, that certainly doesn't own the furniture. Now, that is based on the master deed for our condominium association. Because every condominium association in the country may have a different master deed defining ownership a little bit differently, insurance carriers aren't going to write a separate policy with separate definitions for every condo project. So they have standard policies. Typically, standard policies will cover everything that's attached. They will cover the floor, they will cover the paint, they will cover the cabinets. And but the homeowner is still responsible for anything that's not attached. So the stove may be attached to the cabinets, and that may be covered. The washer and dryer is not attached, and so it wouldn't be covered. The refrigerator wouldn't be covered. None of the furniture would be covered. Now, because insurance policies can vary, you should always consult with an insurance agent to make sure your purchasing the right amount of coverage in your HO6 policies. But the most important thing is that you have an HO6 policy. Without that, your contents, your furniture will not be covered. I've taken a complicated subject and reduced it down to a couple of minutes. Does anybody have any questions? And realize you may have to unmute yourself to ask a question. Okay, Dave, I'll bounce it back to you.
Well, thank you, Rodney. Appreciate that. Once again, just some important items that we want to make sure to keep everyone safe.
I will mention, Dave, that about half of the units that were involved in this last fire, the homeowners did not have an HO6 policy, and they're having to come out of pocket for some things.
Yeah, we definitely would not want that to happen. To heaven forbid it happens again, but if just in case, we want to be prepared and safe. All right, so let me continue. Okay, water. So water is a major issue here at the resort, especially as buildings age. There's been a lot of water damage that we've needed to repair. We've had a major storm event that actually came to the west of us instead of the normal route to the east of us. So it had a different flow of rain. So rain hit different walls, different windows, different doors, where the other doors on the one side of the building had been waterproofed substantially due to all the storms. And then we have this other storm that was, the wind was circulating the opposite direction, the wind-driven rain. And so we've had a lot of repairs to do, a lot of deck replacements, a lot of ceiling repairs that we've done as an association. And so that's the HOA's responsibility. So the owner's responsibility in this, also we've had a lot of damages and resulting of plug condensation lines, for example. Meaning that the lines that run from your HVAC system that drain all the condensation off, there's normally a primary line and there's a secondary line normally. And a good way to tell if your condensation line, your primary line is plugged, because all of a sudden your secondary line is starting to drip water. And that's a red flag indicator that you need to go in and check your condensation lines. I just suggest you go in and check it on a regular basis. Water heaters as well. We've had water heaters go out, and it causes, of course, significant hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damages.
Yes. Going back to the condensation lines, as you said, there are two drains, a primary and a secondary. The
Yes.
secondary drain is always located to drip in front of a window, so it's kind of obvious. So anytime you see something dripping outside in front of one of your windows, that means the condensation line is plugged. And even if you're on the first floor and you see it on the second floor, it's eventually going to come down to you. So let us know and we'll get it taken care of.
Yes. Well, actually, it's the owner to take care of that, but we can help in that if there's needs some help. Okay, water heaters, we're suggesting that we replace a water heater at the most every 10 years. So if you have a water heater older than 10 years, we strongly encourage, based on historical data, not only our own, but others, that water heater is a ticking water bomb, so to speak, if it's not changed every 10 years, even if it's used infrequently. So it's just a matter of time. So we're strongly encourage that. Doors and windows in Plantation Golf Villas 2, that's the owner's responsibility. In Plantation Golf Villas 3, they voted as owners to make it the HOA responsibility. But all doors and windows are the owner's responsibility to help keep and repair. Some windows in these associations are now 20 plus years old, especially if they're wood and not vinyl. And especially the vinyl clad. We found windows where they said, oh, we have vinyl windows, but it's vinyl clad, meaning that they were just wrapped with vinyl, but it's wood underneath. We found a lot of damage there because the vinyl has actually kept the water in and rotted the wood. So just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that. Also, all the supply lines, water supply lines in the units, to your toilets, commodes, to the washers, refrigerator, dishwasher lines, all of those should be checked on a regular basis. We've had major flooding happening from one of those giving way as well. Okay, so speaking of major projects, and we've started this in Plantation Golf Villas 1, and but as the buildings age, We are going to eventually one day going to reach the point where we're going to have to really work on the exterior. And I tried to give you a close-up shot of one of the buildings where the mortar is actually starts to erode and be missing. So you have several areas like holes here where wind-driven rain especially can penetrate. But not only that, it penetrates the brick if it's ongoing. So a lot of the water damages that we're seeing now, especially with the oldest buildings, some approaching 40 years old now, we're going to have to what's called point and tuck, meaning that someone comes through and manually goes through and refills in all the mortar joints that are missing mortar. And then once that's done, they put a sealant on the brick. And like I said, we're just starting that in phase one with the oldest buildings. It'll be 5 years or so probably before it reaches the associations here in this meeting. But just to let you know that that's something we're planning on doing. That's a substantial cost, on average about $20,000 a building. But one thing that we absolutely need to do before we do the ceiling project, and that's why I'm bringing it up now, is that windows need to be replaced before the ceiling takes place. Because if not, and then we have to go back and replace a window after the ceiling is taking place, then the owner will have to pay for the reseal to be done around the window that's been replaced. So we're asking for you all to start looking at the windows, and those that are original, you may want to consider replacing those. We can actually help you do that as well. We're getting pretty expert at it. We just replaced over 30 plus windows in the first building that we're going to be waterproofing, which is building 200. So any questions on that?
We just had the windows replaced a couple of years ago, so that should be okay, right?
Yeah, if you've already replaced your windows, then that's great. I'm just talking about especially the original windows that will need to be replaced. That's great. Good question. Yes, if you've already replaced the windows, then we're not asking you to replace them again, unless they need it for whatever reason. Good question. Okay, so let's talk about the construction around the resort. Those of you who have not been here lately, these are pictures just taken here within the last week of one of the odd side of the resort and the even side of the resort. Now, on both sides of the resort, construction is happening right now as we speak. So here's just some examples of what you would see if you're looking out your back window. Fortunately, on the odd side for us all, on the odd side of Double Eagle, there is extensive amounts of pond being developed. So even beyond the existing water features, they're being developed. Now on the even side, this just started actually just a week ago. They just started moving dirt. We haven't seen what is going to be the result of how they're going to increase the ponds or the waterways to help with their retention, water retention. We'll be watching that closely. We know on the odd side of Double Eagle Drive, it's Beverly Homes. It's the residential developer that has been developing on the south course. Now they've reached the buildings on the odd side. We believe it's probably going to be Lennar Homes. From the tax records, it looks like it's the same company. I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that, but it's going to be another residential developer developing behind the even side of Double Eagle Drive. And that's, like I said, just begun. So just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that that's what's happening at the resort. I had some owners come back. I'm very upset that we're not doing anything about it. And I said, well, we had a lawsuit and it was for a dozen years plus going through the judicial system and we lost. So really there's nothing we can do but prepare for what's going to come. And that's what I want to talk about as well. We've been working on looking at different ways to do some screening. Don't know how close the buildings are going to be, the residential houses are going to be to us, but like just some examples of what we've been discussing as a board on what kind of screening we can do. So here's a screening, it's actually a PVC product. It's like a privacy screen that we could work on in some areas. Of course, there's just the natural bushes and palm trees and stuff that we can do. Bamboo, Bamboo's been a very successful screening for us on the even side of Presidential Drive. And then once again, if we have to, there's even artificial means, like there's some artificial boxwood walls there that we can put up. So we just need to wait until the dust settles, so to speak, to see where we really truly need to invest some resources into providing some screening from the development that's happening behind the resort. But we're fully planning and intending on doing that. We're just, like I said, have to wait and see what's going to be done first before we start moving forward with any plans. Any questions on that?
I think who owns the pond? The Grand Farm own it or the developer?
I'm sorry?
Who owns the pond?
The developers do. The resort does not. It's all the development.
Oh, okay. Got you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. Any other questions on that? So lots of development going on around the resort. Okay, we've had this question asked and we continue to ask, but unfortunately there's no access to the amenities. That's just the answer right there. They're privately owned. The owner has declined to grant access to anyone besides the resort guests. Okay, unit key access. I know that there's been a lot of new owners moving in. There's been a lot of changeover in all the associations in the resort. Just want to remind everyone that the rules and regulations require that an owner provide a key to the property management team and or the security team, just in case of emergencies. You know, pest control in phase 2, for example, well, it's been 5 years now plus, but in phase 2, we had to take a whole building offline because of a roach infestation because one unit refused to have pest control treat their condo. And of course, roaches and other insects aren't going to know where one condo starts and the other begins, or one ends and one begins. So they're just going to infiltrate everywhere. It took us 6 weeks of continual treatment to knock out the infestation in building 214. And so once again, there are a few, not in these associations necessarily, but there are a few owners that are declining us entering their condos for whatever reason. We understand safety reasons, especially in this COVID environment, and we've tried to let it slide and push it out, but now it's getting beyond just every quarter treatment, even every half year treatment. Now we're getting to some condos where they've gone a year without treatment. And we really can't have that. So just a reminder for that, because we really need to have that pest control in there and being done just to keep the pests away from all of us. Okay, so I'm gonna turn the time over to Josh Benson here just in a second and talk about the budgets, talk about where we are year to date in actual versus budget of 2021. And we'll talk about our proposed budget for 2022 and the new maintenance fee and get all that. But just want to let you know that, of course, this goes without saying that inflation is happening at a rapid rate. In fact, I just saw the other day an advertisement, for example, in service contract increases, that last bullet point, due to sharp rise in labor and material costs. Boy, labor, if we can get labor costs have skyrocketed. In fact, in some instances, they've doubled from what they were in years past. And of course, that all impacts the maintenance fee. But on that note, I'll stop sharing the screen here and allow, if Josh, do you have the ability to share the screen?
No, not yet. If you go down to the share screen, there's that little caret, and then it just says, I think there's a button down there that allows me to share.
I just clicked on it. Hopefully you've got it.
Okay, I do. All right. All right. So now this is HOA Golf Villas 2. Dave, do you want me to go through both of them or just Golf Villas too. Okay. So that you guys all understand what we're looking at here, I'm going to take just a minute to set it up. If you're on your phone, this might be tougher to see, but you can, still ask any questions you need. This right here is our 2021 anticipated year-end amount in this column, and this is our budget. So this is the difference between what we anticipate and what the budget is. Obviously down here, this is our different categories of expenses and revenues and things like that. One of the major items in 2021 is we increased the HOA fee for the Wi-Fi. Because the Wi-Fi didn't roll out perfectly, that was credited back to all of the owners, and the HOA itself was not charged. So that entire amount, if we look at this, these are the quarterly assessments. That 26,000 that we received less than budget. So this is our anticipated 203,400. The 26,000 that was less than budget is 100% of that is the Wi-Fi fee that wasn't received from owners, but in turn also wasn't paid by the association. So I just want to point that out. Our budget total, we came very close to being a zero balance, meaning all of the revenue was properly matched to budget in some capacity or another. So I'm just going to go over a couple of major items that there was some differences, and then we'll go to the next year's budget. These categories right here are what I call major improvement, or general repair and maintenance expenses, and it kind of float through different subjects. But overall, we were lighter this year. So $18,000 in this association is what we anticipate spending versus the $27,000 that we budgeted. However, while we were lighter in that category, we were heavier in a few other categories. One of the major ones was routine grounds maintenance. So the routine ground maintenance that's including, that's in addition to the contract, but this is, any of the outside projects that the resort is, working on for the association, and a few other additional things. I think there were some irrigation issues as well. So that one came up substantially over budget. However, between those categories, we are still in line.
So Josh, this is also, and we could have coded it to one or the other. A lot of that happened to be, of course, you mentioned irrigation. We had to do some extensive irrigation repair in some of the buildings, but also that happened to do with a lot of the re-landscaping around the curb and guttering that we're seeing.
Right.
So instead of us putting it in improvement projects, it went to, or ordinary maintenance, we just put in a routine ground maintenance. But that's where the majority of that came from, is the new landscaping that went to the berms that were curbed and guttered.
Gotcha. Right. Okay. I'm going to scroll down. Another one of the big categories was insurance. We always try to anticipate what insurance will be. It is difficult because we're affected by the hurricanes that come, any other event. And in the last couple of years, we've increased the insurance projection by about 10% every year. That's what we estimate, 10% from actual. This year, the insurance came up quite a bit more. So you could see insurance was $30,600 this year versus what we budgeted. So that's $3,800 more. So insurance, this is when Rodney was talking about the insurance that the association pays. That's where that category is, and it was substantial. So we're anticipating that for the next year. Most of these other items, these categories, are right on line with what we anticipate them being.
Josh, let me go back to insurance for a second. We have to set the budget in August or September. That insurance policy doesn't renew till May, so there's over half a year that elapses. So all we can do is give our best guess, but that's why very often we're not as close as we'd like to be.
Right. Yeah, that is definitely a tougher one to anticipate. Like I said, most of the other categories are pretty fair and right on budget. Right here, you could see this was the additional Wi-Fi that was increased in 2021. We had budgeted 26,640. We've charged none of the associations. Excuse me, the association wasn't charged at all. So there's a big credit there, which matches what wasn't charged to the owners. Let me scroll down here. I want to show you, this is down here. This is where we get into the reserves, the reserve balance. So this year, based on our anticipation, you know, we go through the different calculations. We anticipate essentially having a zero budget. This shows a negative of $52, and that could be effective. You know, that could go up or down a couple dollars, of course. Which is you know, right at what we've budgeted. We have placed $14,880 we've contributed to the reserve fund. The reserve fund is what pays for the parking lots. It's what pays for parking stops. And in fact, even the point and tuck that Dave had mentioned earlier is paid for out of the reserve budget. It also pays for the roofs. In fact, last year, I think we had 2 roofs replaced. I forget which ones they were, but that came out of the reserve budget. It's essentially a savings account that each year you put money aside for those major expenses. It's best practices in an association like this, and so we've continued to contribute that. What that means is you might pay a few years in advance for, you know, the major expenses down the line, but you don't have a big special assessment or anything later down the line. You can control costs a little bit better that way. So all in all, with 2021, we are looking to match our budget as proposed. On the 2021 budget, are there any questions or concerns before I go over to the 2022 budget? Okay, going over to the 2022 budget, we have proposed an increase to the homeowners It's around a 4.5% increase. The quarterly assessment for HOA Golf Villas 2 will go to $1,005 per quarter. Right now it's $958.50 before the credit that we've been giving out. So many of you owners, you might have seen there's an $111 credit that we've been giving out because the internet hasn't been included. Assuming that that gets fixed and going forward, we're able to charge that, the assessment fee will be $105. Scrolling down, most of the items have stayed, you know, they've increased based on labor. One of the increases that I wanted to point out for our contract landscape maintenance, which is the basic maintenance, the mowing, the blowing, those types of things of the landscape, that increased 3%. The routine grounds maintenance, we anticipate the same type of expenses for 2022 as we got in 2021. So that increased sharply in the budget to match our actual from last year. We were able to get decreases in our security expense contracts and our management and accounting contracts. So we had some significant decreases in both of those categories that the resort was willing to accept. It was about a 10% to 12% decrease in management and accounting, and it was like an 18% decrease in security. So that was a contract that we were able to renegotiate with the resort. The insurance for this next year, we put another 10% increase on that. And most of these other categories have remained about the same. Lastly, we have increased our contribution to our reserve fund to $16,340 per year, which brings us to a zero budget balance. I'm gonna scroll back up to the top. With this review, what questions do you have on the 2021 or 2022 budget for me today?
You have any questions? No, we're good.
Good. Okay. Dave and Rodney, is there anything else you wanted to elaborate on?
Great job, Josh. Appreciate that. And like I
Okay.
said, we'll be sending all this documentation, including a copy of the important notice that I went over, including a copy of the HO6 versus HOA insurance letters. Even though you received them once, we'll make sure we're going to send them out to all the owners again, including copies of this budget. But right now, I guess we're moving to propose. I propose that we vote to approve the budget as presented by Josh Benson. Anyone second that?
I second it.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone?
Aye.
I guess the easiest way should be is any opposed. So it sounds like it's unanimous. Thank you so much for your support. And thank you, Josh, for all the hard work there. Appreciate that. And I've got to get my mouse figured out. Like I said, I'm running on 3 different screens and I have to get my mouse to the right screen to get it to work. Oh, I need to share first. Let me share back the presentation. Can you all see that? Hopefully.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so election. Okay, right now we have a full board. But we always ask every year if there's anyone who would like to be nominated as a board member to run against any of the board that we currently have. I'm opening the floor for those nominations.
No, thank you.
Oh, come on, you can take my job. I'll give it up. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I would. I'm not kidding, but I am kidding. But I'll do what I'm asked. All right, going once on nominations. So I'm going to close the floor for nominations and we'll just continue the board as serving per acclamation. But like I said, if anyone has any interest at all in serving, please reach out to me and we'll consider that and move that forward. So thank you for your support on that as well. Okay, this is the time when if we haven't answered all the questions, we would definitely want to hear and try to answer as many questions as we can. So I open up the floor to any questions that we haven't answered during the presentation.
Okay, I would like to ask a question, David.
Yes.
Earlier, this is Wayne Dupre, 216C2.
Yes.
You were discussing the smoke detectors earlier, and I didn't realize that I was muted. And I just wanted to ask, the smoke detectors that came with the building originally, aren't those hardwired, or do they also have batteries that have to be replaced?
It depends. Rodney, would you have the answer to that?
Sure. They should be hardwired, but the regulations require that they have a battery backup in case the power's out. So you should have, you still have to replace the batteries. Now, you're also concerning wiring, they should be wired to be interconnected. So depending on your unit, you should have a smoke detector in your middle bedroom, on the outside of your middle bedroom, also in the living room area, and possibly by the front bedroom. You could have 3 or 4 smoke detectors.
Right, okay.
That they should have been interconnected already, and you already have a wire, and you can, but it's necessary when you replace a defective smoke detector that integrity of the interconnections maintained.
Right, okay.
Now, Wayne, if for whatever reason, you need to do some replacements, once again, since you're hardwired already, as long as those wires are still fine, you should be able to easily replace those smoke detectors to make them interconnected. But if not, if for whatever reason the line is severed for whatever reason, there's wireless options available now that are really cost effective that will wirelessly transmit and connect to each other.
Okay, I'll find out about that. Thank you.
Great question. Other questions?
Yeah, I just have plenty. My husband just wants to know the houses that are gonna be built. Are they gonna be single family homes, and what's the highest
Homes.
home that's gonna be built on the lake?
You know, honestly, on the odd side of the resort, I'm much more familiar since I'm just as surprised about the construction on the even side as you are, really. I've only had a week notice. So we're going to try to go back to the county and see if we can find a proposed plan that was approved by the county so we can see kind of the development that they're doing. I've got that on the odd side, but I don't have that on the even side yet. So honestly, I don't have the answer. Now, normally, if it's going to follow the same pattern as what they've been building in behind on the other side of Deerfield, they'll be single family homes, but I can't be sure of that yet. And I'll try to find that information out and try to include that in the minutes as well.
All right, thank you.
Just making some notes. Any other questions?
I see some people, I see just from their nose up, and I'm just wondering who they are and what building they're in. Looks like two ladies.
No.
Yeah, I'm Evelyn Briones. I'm on 212.
Oh,
G2, yeah.
okay. Now I can see you a little bit. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, I believe we have. Miss Marsh is in 212. Miss Evelyn's in 212. You're in 216, and I think we have one other owner representation from 212 as well.
Dave?
Yes.
Oh, good. You can hear me. Dave, this is Cynthia Ellis and Shirley Matish. We're in 212, G1 and H1. That's the two ladies here. I realize the construction just started, but do you happen to know where their property line stops? Is it right up against our seawall?
Actually, it may even be beyond, it may even be past our seawall. The seawall may not be even on the property.
Interesting. Okay. Is there going to be an improvement in the seawall wall? Do you know? I see them out. The construction company has sprayed lines and surveyed that area. Do you have any knowledge about that?
I do not. Once again, I'm surprised. I would have been better prepared if I would have had a chance to go out and talk to someone. I haven't had a chance yet to even discuss it. No one's contacted us at all. What I do is I try to go out and help any way I can on, locating lines and stuff, especially those that are the resorts that locator company normally wouldn't.
I understand.
Haven't had any contact with them at all yet, but I plan on trying to do that.
So there should be approved county or approved plans for construction at the county offices somewhere to find out exactly what their footprint is going to be.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I have another question, please.
Sure.
The light bulbs, the patio lights on our strip facing the construction, a lot of those are out. Now, some of us, of course, are full-time residents. We've replaced ours, but who's responsible for those outside lights since they are outside?
Well, they're normally the owner responsibility, but some of them, I'm trying to remember in 212 if they actually have, if they're switch enabled or not. Some of them are on sensors where they all come on and stay on, and then others actually have residents can, inside there's a switch by the the patio or deck door that can turn on.
No switch. They're auto on.
Okay, well, great. Well, I'll look at it and I'll get into it. In most instances, we'll replace them even, it's no use bothering the resident for a couple of $1 light bulb. We'll just get.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We were just unsure, and they're kind of a different light bulb because they have different prongs. So,
Right.
and I'm sort of buggered up. I can't climb up and down right at the moment, so.
No,
Um,
let us do that.
Okay, any other questions? We all good? All right, thank you so much, Dave. Appreciate your time.
Oh, no, appreciate all you taking time out to join us this morning. Any other questions that we missed?
Oh, Dave, I'm sorry, we have one more question.
Sure.
That's probably a personnel issue.
Hmm.
Thank you. That's good.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time once again. We sure appreciate you taking time out, and hopefully it was informative for you all.
Yes, thank you.
And please reach out to us to any additional questions that may come up later on. We'd love to answer them for you.
Will do. Thank you, Dave.
You bet. Thank you for, once again. I can get my cursor back. I move to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
David, Randy, you also, you were very quiet today, but have a good day. You look well.
Thank you. Everybody stay safe.
Okay, you too.
Thank you.
Be healthy. Be healthy.